I had always heard that what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but no one ever warned me that something might follow you back. The neon lights of the Strip were a far cry from the dimly lit corridors of the old casino where I found myself that night. It was supposed to be a shortcut back to my hotel, a little-known passage through the heart of old Vegas where the ghosts of Sinatra and the Rat Pack still lingered. The air was thick with the scent of stale cigarettes and lost dreams. The slot machines were silent, their bright lights and cheerful jingles long extinguished. I could hear the faint echo of dice rolling, cards flipping, and the distant laughter of a crowd that had vanished years ago. It was eerie, walking through this graveyard of glitz and glamour, but I was too intrigued to turn back. That's when I saw her, a vision in white, standing at the end of the corridor. She was a showgirl, her costume adorned with feathers and sequins that shimmered in the ghostly light. Her eyes were hollow, her smile a painted-on rictus that sent shivers down my spine. She beckoned to me, and against my better judgment, I followed. She led me through a maze of corridors, each turn taking me deeper into the bowels of the casino. The air grew colder, the silence more oppressive. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't obey. It was as if I was under her spell, drawn to her as surely as a moth to a flame. We arrived at a door, its wood warped and swollen with age. She pushed it open, revealing a room that time had forgotten. A roulette table sat in the center, its wheels spinning endlessly, the ball never finding its pocket. The chairs were filled with specters, their faces gaunt, their eyes filled with a hunger that was palpable. "Play," she whispered, her voice a melody that was both beautiful and terrifying. I approached the table, my heart pounding in my chest. The specters turned to me, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. I knew then that I was playing for more than just chips. I was playing for my soul. The wheel spun, the ball clattered, and the numbers blurred before my eyes. I placed my bet, the chips cold and heavy in my hand. The wheel slowed, the ball settled, and the room held its breath. Black 17. The specters wailed, their cries a cacophony of despair. The showgirl laughed, her voice echoing off the walls. I had won, but the victory felt hollow. The chips in my hand turned to dust, and the specters vanished, leaving me alone in the silence. I stumbled out of the room, the corridor stretching before me like a never-ending nightmare. The exit seemed miles away, but I forced myself to move. I had to get out. I had to escape. When I finally emerged into the neon-lit night, the sounds of the Strip were like a symphony to my ears. I didn't stop running until I reached my hotel, my lungs burning, my mind reeling from what I had experienced. I thought it was over, but as I lay in bed, trying to convince myself it was all a dream, I heard it. The faint sound of a roulette wheel spinning, the laughter of a showgirl, the wails of the damned. It was a reminder that in Vegas, even the impossible can be real. And sometimes, the house doesn't just win. It claims you. The haunting didn't end that night. It followed me like a shadow, creeping into my dreams, whispering promises of wealth and power. I tried to ignore it, to drown out the memories with the clinking of glasses and the laughter of strangers. But the showgirl's eyes haunted me, her hollow gaze burning into my soul. I returned to the old casino, driven by an inexplicable compulsion. The roulette room was waiting, its door creaking open as if inviting me in. The wheel spun, the ball bouncing from number to number, and I placed my bet once more. Black 17. The specters watched, their eyes hungry, their spectral fingers tracing the edge of the table. The wheel slowed, the ball teetered on the brink, and then it settled. Red 23. I had lost. The showgirl's laughter echoed through the room and the specters closed in. Their fingers brushed my skin, icy and insistent. I stumbled backward, my heart racing, but the door was gone. The walls closed in, the ceiling pressing down, and I couldn't breathe. The room was devouring me, consuming my very essence. "Again," the showgirl whispered, her voice a blade against my sanity. I played, again and again, losing each time. The specters grew more desperate, their eyes pleading. They wanted release, salvation, but I was trapped in this cursed game. The room stretched and twisted, its walls pulsing like a living thing. I lost track of time, lost track of myself. And then one night as the wheels spun, I saw it, a glimmer of hope. The ball wavered, hesitated, and landed on Black 17. I had won. The specters wailed, their forms dissolving into mist. The showgirl's smile faltered, her eyes widening in shock. But victory came at a price. The room trembled, its walls cracking. The floor gave way, and I fell into darkness. When I woke, I was back on the strip, the neon lights blinding, the sounds of revelry deafening. But something had changed. I could see the specters now, lurking in the corners, their eyes following me. I tried to forget, to drown my memories in alcohol and bright lights. But the showgirl haunted my every step. She appeared in reflections, her face twisted with rage. She whispered in my ear, promising vengeance, demanding payment. I knew then that I was marked, that I would never escape her grasp. So, I write this warning to you, dear reader. If you ever find yourself in Old Vegas, stay away from the roulette room. Avoid the showgirl, no matter how alluring she seems. For what happens in Vegas may stay there, but sometimes it follows you home. A relentless specter, a cursed game, and a debt that can never be repaid. And if you hear the faint sound of a roulette wheel spinning in the dead of night, run. Run as fast as you can, for the house always wins, and it will claim you, body and soul. The desert air was cool against my skin as I drove down the lonely stretch of highway toward Las Vegas. The city's glow beckoned in the distance, a beacon of promise in the vast emptiness. I was seeking an escape, a weekend of thrills to drown out the monotony of my life. As I neared the city, a strange radio broadcast crackled through the speakers. A voice, smooth and hypnotic, spoke of a hidden casino where the games were like no other. It promised fortunes and delights beyond imagination, but it warned that only the brave should seek it out. Intrigued, I followed the cryptic directions that led me away from the strip, down forgotten back streets, to an old neon sign flickering with the words, Mirage's Edge. The casino was a relic from another era, its grandeur faded but still majestic. Inside, the atmosphere was electric, the patrons a blur of excitement and desperation. I was drawn to a game called The Phantom's Wheel. The croupier, a woman with piercing green eyes, invited me to play. "Spin the wheel," she said, "and let fate decide." With a flick of her wrist, the wheel spun, a whirlwind of colors and numbers. I watched, mesmerized as it slowed, the pointer landing on a section marked with a skull. The room fell silent. The croupier leaned in, her breath cold on my ear. "You've chosen the path of shadows," she whispered. "Follow me." She led me through a maze of corridors to a door marked with the same skull from the wheel. Inside, the room was shrouded in darkness. "Your game begins now," she said, vanishing before my eyes. The door slammed shut, and I was alone. A chill ran down my spine as I realized this was no ordinary game. Shadows moved in the corners of the room, whispers filled the air, and I felt eyes watching me from the darkness. I stumbled through the pitch-black space, my hands outstretched, searching for a way out. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. They spoke of lost souls, of games played and lives forfeited. I found a switch and flicked it on, hoping for light. Instead, the room illuminated with ghostly apparitions, each one a player who had spun the wheel and lost. They reached for me, their touch icy and filled with sorrow. I realized escape was never an option. The game had only just begun. The darkness was absolute, a void where the very concept of light seemed a distant memory. The whispers grew more insistent, a symphony of voices that seemed to speak directly into my mind. They told tales of lifetimes spent in the pursuit of fortune, of risks taken and lost, of the Mirage's Edge as their final resting place. I felt a presence beside me, a figure cloaked in the same impenetrable darkness that filled the room. "You are one of us now," it said, its voice a mixture of melancholy and malice. "Here, in the shadows, you will play until time itself unravels." The room began to change, the walls stretching into infinity, the ceiling disappearing into a vortex of swirling mist. Tables materialized from the ether, each one hosting a game more bizarre and terrifying than the last. Cards that screamed when touched, dice that bled, roulette wheels that spun with a life of their own. I was compelled to play, moving from table to table, each game a twisted reflection of my deepest fears. At one, I played poker with a man whose face was a blank slate, his hands dealing cards that showed not numbers or suits, but moments from my past, each one a regret that cut to the bone. At another, I threw dice made of bone against a woman with eyes that held entire galaxies. The numbers they landed on dictated the years of my life, adding and subtracting from my lifespan with each roll. Hours turned to days, or perhaps it was years. Time had no meaning in the Mirage's Edge. I was caught in a loop of endless gaming, my soul the currency that I gambled with abandon. It was during a game of blackjack, where the dealer was a creature of shadow and flame, that I saw a glimmer of hope. The creature dealt me a card that shone with a pure, radiant light. It was the Ace of Suns, a card that was said to hold the power to break the Mirage's Edge's curse. I played the card, and the room erupted in chaos. The tables shattered, the apparitions screamed in rage and fear, and the darkness began to recede. I ran towards the light, the Ace of Suns burning brightly in my hand. The casino's patrons, no longer hollow shells, cheered me on, their voices becoming clearer as the light grew stronger. I reached the door and pushed it open, the Ace of Suns disintegrating into a shower of sparks as I crossed the threshold. The sun was rising over Las Vegas, its rays banishing the night's terrors. I looked back at the Mirage's Edge, but it was gone, replaced by an empty lot as if it had never existed. I walked away, the city coming to life around me. The games of the Mirage's Edge were over, but their memory lingered, a reminder of the thin line between reality and the abyss. As I merged with the crowd, the sun climbing higher in the sky, I knew that Las Vegas would always be a city of dreams and nightmares, of lights and shadows. And somewhere, in the heart of the desert, the Mirage's Edge waited, ready to claim the next unwary soul.